Welcome to the latest edition of the Celtics Rundown live stream right here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. I'm your host, Bobby Krivitsky, and joining us today, we have someone who Celtics fans, maybe you want to hear from him, maybe you don't. He might not be your favorite at the moment, but he's here to drop gems. We have Andrew Claudio from Knicks Film School. Andrew, appreciate you taking the time.
Bobby, long time no see. I am excited to talk to you, even under the circumstances that I'm sure you're not as excited to talk to me. Looking forward to chatting today.
Yeah, this is both a chance to gloat and dissect how we got here as this series moves to New York with the Knicks leading 2-0. Celtics were the heavy betting favorite coming in. Still the favorites in Vegas as but now it's minuscule, only minus 120 at some sites, depending on where you look. So, Andrew, let's start from a macro sense here. What are your takeaways as to how we got here and why it is that the Knicks are able to lead this series 2-0?
So it's a back and forth thing, I gotta say, where I'm doing my best to navigate what the Knicks are doing right in this series as opposed to what the Celtics are doing wrong, to just flat out the basketball gods playing the variance game in the in like the fact that they're just missing a ton of shots, like being what they are from three in the series so far is part of the calculation for sure. But I also recognize that the Knicks are able to, they've switched up their defensive coverage in this series. What they've done in switching and things that they just didn't do during the regular season with the Celtics, they've done a little bit better. So I want to applaud the Knicks for how they've done it and how they've gotten here. I also recognize that there's a lot of what the Celtics are doing wrong and then just flat out not doing and hitting shots that's helped them get to this place. But thankfully, the final score from a Knicks side of things is not measured in expected or shot quality or any of those process stats. It's how many times you put the ball in the hoop, and the Knicks have thankfully done it for 4 more points than the Celtics so far.
Yeah, and it's funny because the Celtics, even Joe Mazzulla today, kind of reiterated that those are the things they, by and large, hang their hat on, the shot quality on a per-possession basis, items of that nature. I talked to him about needing to hang your hat on winning the margins in this series and on defense more than ever because shooting variance isn't working in your favor. And you don't want to look back and say, we had bad luck from 3 and that's why we lost. And he said, well, hey, we're winning the margins in this series. It's just we're not making shots. And you could sense the frustration with this process versus results duality that they're dealing with here. And look, I don't say this like I'm touting something novel or revolutionary here, but Andrew, I've been putting in all my pieces and a bunch of tweets and blue sky posts and whatever that, hey, don't just look at bad luck from the Celtics and, they squandered these 20-point leads. Credit the Knicks. And I would say, really, you should start there. To the victor go the spoils, right? And so OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges, the job they're doing in this series, especially on the defensive end, has been tremendous. Anunoby hadn't cracked 15 points against the Celtics ever. And you look at the performances that he's provided all of a sudden. So it's not just the defense, but you're right. You mentioned the switching. And I don't think the Celtics were ill-prepared for a curveball from New York, but it's that ability to execute it and make life difficult for the Celtics repeatedly. And the job they're doing with both the switching and then being able to deter drives and stunt and recover and the backline help they're getting. I think New York defensively looks like a totally different team than the one the Celtics saw in the regular season.
And it's interesting that you talk about the regular season sample because a lot of Knicks fans are frustrated with the amount of drop coverage they played against the Celtics, the amount of, I just like the lack of switching, like putting Karl Anthony Towns in drop. I mean, it's what they played for the majority of the season. But there was always this wild card, and it's how we've tried to evaluate this season. And it's funny that we're in this place now with Tom Thibodeau, where I thought this was going to be his last series as Knicks head coach. I think a lot of people went into this playoffs thinking he's going to have to do the impossible, or else the Knicks will be looking for a new head coach to boost the offense based off of the personnel that they went all in with. And look, they still have not done anything right with the offense as far as I'm concerned. This is still not a team that can get away with what the offense performance has been through regulation. They scored 100 points in regulation in game 1 and 91 in regulation in game 2. That's just not going to win you a lot of playoff games. But the thought was that come playoff time, if you reserve what he's been and what they've been during the regular season and reserve your judgment on the full picture until the playoffs, then maybe he'll show you something different. And what we've seen through 2 rounds is some nitpicks here and there that you could say you should have done this better. But man, they have just completely flipped the script on him and what he's done through 2 games, and the fact that we saw a little bit of drop at the beginning of the third quarter last night, but they're mostly making sure that Cat isn't guarding someone in space, whether it be Tatum, whether it be Brown. I've been impressed with how the Knicks have switched up just about literally, I mean, pun intended, switched up everything from what they've done in the regular season. It's why I said during the season, as frustrated as I am with Tibbs, I am choosing to hold off my judgments on him until the playoffs. And here we are up 2-0 on the Celtics, which is still a mind-blowing fact to me.
And heading back to New York, where I cannot wait for the atmosphere there at Madison Square Garden. To me, it is unrivaled. And the belief, like, New York is undeniably a basketball city. And we've seen celebrations in the streets while they're the 4th seed after a regular season win, and it kind of means nothing in the grand scheme.
Opening night, Bobby. Opening night, they'll go nuts, you know? The birth of Bing Bong was an opening night win, you know?
That's exactly where I was going. That's how we get the birth of Bing Bong, is opening night against the Celtics, by the way. And so the atmosphere there, I mean, they were going to ride for their Knicks, period. Then they take game 1, and it's, oh, wow, now its feet are starting to come off the ground a little bit here, where you kind of have to resist that urge of looking towards, could we win the title? Where it went from, hey, you know, we love this team, we're supporting them, but 0-10 against the top tier in the regular season, we don't really believe. And then all of a sudden we see what unfolds, where they rally against 2 20-point deficits in the third quarter. And that atmosphere, I mean, the price of tickets, according to TickPick, are the 2nd most on record for the average purchase price in Knicks franchise history for a home game. So Madison Square Garden is just going to be bonkers on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm not someone that can afford the ticket on Saturday, that's for sure. Shout out to Knicks Film School. We're doing a watch party at one of our esteemed locations this Saturday in the city, so we'll be represented well. But yeah, it's crazy how much difference a 3 days can make, because I think a lot of us went into this series with certain expectations, and Saturday was always going to be like, oh, this is the 2nd round home game, we'll get up for it, it's a home game at MSG, like you're always excited. The chance to go up 3-0 now creates an expectation on game 3 that I don't think it's been like this since. And I've trying to since you sent the rundown, like I've been trying to rack my brain the last time there was this much anticipation and hype around a Knicks home game in the playoffs. And it's like game 1 against Atlanta, coming out of the pandemic, their first home game in the playoffs since 2013. That was up there. You know, game 3 against the Celtics, people forget this series in 2011, that first Carmelo season when they were down 2-0 in the first round. There was hype, but I don't think anybody actually thought the Knicks were on the same level. That was a 2 versus 7, if I remember correctly, or 2-7 or a 3-6, whichever one it was. And then, like, realistically, you have to go back to like 1999 or 2000 during one of those deep playoff runs, because look, I know this is a Celtics podcast, and we can talk about, you know, from the Celtics perspective. The path to the NBA Finals is now very clear for the New York Knicks. And while I, as a Knicks fan, and I think a lot of Knicks fans will tell you they haven't allowed themselves to start thinking about the Knicks being in the finals, the path now seems very clear. Win 2 more games, win 2 of the next 5, and then you have home court potentially against a Pacers team that you are looking for revenge against after last year. You know, and that's like assuming like you get the Pacers or an injury-riddled Cavs team that you're playing against. The point is that the mountaintop that you were trying to climb for all season, while you went all in on trading for Anunoby, while you traded all the picks for Mikal Bridges, and I guess why you traded for Karl Anthony Towns too, was the Celtics. And if you play that dragon, you suddenly see a different ceiling for this season that you didn't believe existed. I think a lot of Knicks fans will bring that energy and anticipation and excitement into the Garden on Saturday.
And when we talk about that change in perspective from how things went in the regular season to now, I think a lot of that is also related to the emergence of Mitchell Robinson, who's suddenly healthy, and you're able to play double big more and what that's done. So just what have you seen from him overall? Because even again, talking to the Celtics today, they're frustrated by the impact that he's had.
Well, so defensively, the Knicks finally have a rim protector after all year of Karl Anthony Towns. No disrespect to Cat. It's just not his strong suit. The Minnesota Timberwolves saw him for 7 seasons and saw what he's good at, saw what he's bad at, and decided to trade 4 picks for Rudy Gobert when they already had a quote-unquote center on the roster, and they didn't have the greatest offense, but they created a top 5 defense with that plan. And that's why, like, the double bigs working in this series shouldn't surprise us as much as it might have, because you've seen a team that's now put Karl Anthony Towns guarding you a little more physically, a little more up close, so he's not guarding in space anymore. And when that's how they beat the Nuggets last year, is they put Cat on Jokic and said, be physical, be big, and we'll put Gobert in help, and you have McDaniels on the wing, and you're able to cut off any space possible to make it claustrophobic for Jokic. And the Knicks aren't doing that for sure, but they are like playing to Karl Anthony Towns' strengths, where you put him in a switch, fine, but as long as he's got lines of defenses either in help or behind him at the rim, he's much more impactful. And I shouldn't say more impactful, less of a liability is probably more the way to say it, because he's not like a good defender, but I think you've seen he can be a serviceable defender in the series, and that starts with Mitchell Robinson being on the court with him at the same time. And look what he does on the boards. He was instrumental with his offensive rebounding. And this is where I have to ask you a question now, because I'm assuming like the Hack-a-Mitch is a sound strategy if you're in the bonus. I could not believe that the plan with 2 and change, like it was only going to be a 44-second calculation that Mazzulla was making there. Those 2 fouls when they weren't in the penalty, to put them in the penalty. The second one in particular, because Tibbs even saw, they're going to foul him again. And I mean, Joe Mazzulla talks about how he's like a chess guy. He likes to think multiple steps ahead. Tibbs was the one that was making a move for the queen, while Mazzulla was like, I got to protect this castle right in front of me, and was like, let's foul Mitch one more time and get him out of game for 44 seconds. When you're up 4 and the Knicks were going to sub OG Anunoby back in, you gave them incentive to put their best offensive unit back in. And it's just because Mitchell Robinson exists. He was playing the plus-minus game. I understand Mitch played well last night. I couldn't believe that was the calculation that was made by Mazzulla, who I think is a good coach, but just it is a bit. It seems to be twisted into a pretzel to an extent mentally. So if you could speak to that, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
So I'm going to include my analysis in this as well, but I think even today, the Celtics internally don't regret that decision. That might be baffling for some to hear, but right away, of course, Joe gets asked about that. And by the way, I don't know if you're aware, I'm guessing you are, the fire alarm went off at TD Garden.
Right,
so,
right.
Is that kind of it? I mean, I walked out at one point right by Brunson and Hart after the fire alarm's going off. And so, but we did get to speak to Mazzulla, and we spoke to Jaylen Brown as well. And then Tatum, we had to wait until today. But right away, when Joe got asked about that, it was one of the earlier questions. And he immediately shoots back with, hey, Mitchell Robinson was like the only guy, including the Knicks starters, who had a high plus-minus rate. Everyone else was in the negatives. So they wanted to get him off the floor. But to your point, and this is where I'll include my analysis, is the Celtics were winning the battle in terms of offensive rebounding rate. So it's a crucial victory on the margins where it's you're doing well enough. You held them to 10 for the game in total. I don't think you needed to do this to get him off the floor. And the other thing, as I cautioned in real time, as Hacker Robinson is unfolding, is the reality that you might want to, and you might end up in a situation where you want to be able to intentionally foul and have that in your back pocket. And look, Brunson gets fouled on a shot. He's going to the line no matter what, but it changes your approach because it takes an option away going into that possession.
Yeah, that's my calculation too. The Knicks won on 2 free throws because the Celtics were in the penalty. Like, Holiday can play more aggressive on defense on that last play if he has a foul to give or a foul to play with. And you just completely took that chess piece off the board. Yeah, look, I don't think he's coached as bad a series as some people have made it out to be. This is how they won a championship last year, taking a ton of threes, playing the math game. So I think playing the result is a bit fascinating when it doesn't work this year, but it worked last year and it's largely worked the last 2 years. I think the margins have just been places where he's left something to be desired. I understand not calling timeout when you've got the defensive personnel that you want on the court. I just think better plays should be called. You called a brilliant out of timeout play to get Tatum going downhill, really not downhill, like at full speed on the previous play. I would assume you have another one of those in your bag against the Knicks team, and that was like with Mitch and the Knicks best defensive unit on the floor at the same time. So yeah, I've just been fascinated to see those margins that I think they're losing, unfortunately. And in these one possession games, those margins matter.
So going back to that, he dials up the same play twice in a row at the end, works the first time, doesn't the second. That to me, and it's very easy to play couch quarterback, but at the same time, I felt like it was a poor read on Jason Tatum specifically, because Tatum, whether it's the bone bruise in his wrist, all the misses from game one, probably a combination of both, if I had to guess, he was passing up a lot of quality looks from three throughout the night in game two. So to call it with the idea that we're going to get him a good look from three, only to see him pass that up, and now he dribbles into traffic and they don't even get a shot off, that was not a good read on how Tatum was functioning last night. And so to me, it's maybe you should have called up something differently. Maybe there should have been a greater imperative on how do we get him another runway to get downhill, because you really dialed that up for Tatum to take a three that presented itself. So in that sense, it worked, but he passed it up, and it was the fifth, sixth, whatever time it was that he had done so last night.
The three would have been on when Mitch switched onto him, right? Like he was
Correct.
supposed to pull up from there, and so he just decided.
Yeah, there's an opportunity coming right off the screen to take it. And usually he would, but last night it was far from the first time that he did not.
Okay. I gotta be honest, I have to go rewatch we've done some of our film breakdowns today, but I thought Mitch was right there. So I think it's a contested three, if anything. So, yeah, look, like you said, this is Monday morning quarterbacking. They needed one of the three to fall that was open throughout the night, and then this conversation doesn't matter, so.
And so as we look at this series, on one hand, there is the Knicks' ability to repeatedly rally in Boston from 20-point deficits in the third quarter, where, especially last night, Al Horford said that it wasn't in his mind, but it felt like deja vu, and it felt like that fully registered on the part of the Celtics as it was unfolding. And in the blink of an eye, it went from 20 to 12. And so you look at the Knicks and their ability to do that and put that pressure on them and play more poised than a team that just won a title last season in those circumstances. And now they go home and they're up 2-0. And we talked about what MSG is going to be like. Do you put more stock in that, or the fact that the Celtics, they're not only not shooting well, but it's quite literally their two worst shooting performances in terms of field goal percentage for the entire season. And they had them back to back. And the 16 points in the fourth quarter of game one, the fewest they've ever produced in the final frame of a playoff game in franchise history. And for an encore, it's 17 in last night's loss. So do you put more stock in, hey, the Knicks are up 2-0 and able to rally, versus the Celtics are winning on the margins in a lot of cases? They're shooting historically bad, but they've still been able to build those advantages to begin with.
So there is something to the fact that the Knicks have been down by 20 in both of these games. Like the Celtics have played well enough to build those leads. It wouldn't shock me if the Celtics build a 20-point lead in either or both of these games at the Garden. I think the fact that this has become a bit of the Knicks' identity, I will say, that goes back to the Pistons series. Came back from double digits in all three of the four of their victories in Detroit, and just overcame some adversity. And we gave the Pistons some credit last night. Not that like they care about what we say, but the fact that this team seemed to be sleepwalking through the regular season and lacked an identity. We didn't know if this team was just like a collection of talent. What are they good at? What are you afraid of when you play the Knicks? They have a stretch five, but they never play five out, like a true five out, because teams put their wing on Josh Hart, their center on Josh Hart, and a wing on Cat. There's significantly more isolation for a team that has Karl Anthony Towns. Than is left to be desired. And like, from an offensive standpoint, there were some frustrations. So it was tough to really calculate what the Knicks were. And it appears they've developed an identity that started in the Detroit series, that they're going to go down at some point. And then when it becomes all hands on deck and a bit of a desperation, they're going to make a run to try and come back. In the two games they lost in the playoffs so far, they made furious comebacks in the fourth quarter to tie the game with less than a couple minutes left. The Pistons series in game 2, that they came back from double digits down in the fourth to tie it with a minute left. With the game 5 loss, they tied it. And then that was that weird play where both Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart got injured on the same play, and then Tibbs subbed them out and then didn't sub them back in because he didn't want to use his last timeout. So like, this has become their identity. It's almost like they're more comfortable when they're trailing by a bunch and need to come back. I would suggest they don't do that in game 3 or 4. See what it's like to play with the lead against the Celtics.
Just experiment.
Test that.
Give it a whirl.
I just want a data collection. I want to see what that's like. Like, how do you play when you're leading against the Celtics? Go up by 10. See how you react to prosperity, not just adversity.
You might enjoy it.
You never know. It might suit you, So I say that knowing that the task is still very tall for them. The pressure has shifted to the Celtics significantly, but all it takes is one game for some of these shots to go in, for you to now have to start answering your own questions. And it's why, like, this is far from like the Knicks dominating the Celtics to win 2 games. They need to play better offensively. They need to actually run stuff offensively. Jalen Brunson is I believe 15 for 42 so far in these first 2 games. Karl Anthony Towns has taken 2 3-pointers, and one of them was a full court heave at the end of the second quarter, I believe. So the fact that your best 3-point shooter isn't taking threes and your best player isn't really that efficient in the series, and you're up 2-0, means that you're in a great spot for improvement. What happens if the Knicks actually shoot well or play well in game 3? It could combat if some shooting luck returns, or not even just shooting luck, just shooting normalcy returns to the Celtics over the course of this series. So, you're hoping to see that. I hope I answered. It was a long-winded way of saying, like, I think the Knicks are in a good spot, but there's so much room for improvement the rest of the way.
No, you did. And I think that's important for the Celtics fans on this stream not to lose sight of, because it's easy to get tunnel vision and focus on your team and say, well, these things aren't going well. And at this point, it's not they will swing. It's hopefully the shooting variance returns to our favor. And like you said, normalcy is the appropriate word here. And forget, a scorching hot shooting night. We'll settle for normalcy right now. But you look at it in that direction and you might not even consider, hey, there are things the Knicks can be doing better too, that water has not found its level. So you talk about Brunson and the shooting. I did think the other night he did an excellent job of drawing fouls. And it's funny because you can liken him in a sense to how the Celtics would treat a player like Joel Embiid or Karl Anthony Towns post-ups. As long as we don't foul, they're twos. And if we're making our threes, now we're winning the math equation. But not only are they missing those shots, but Brunson drawing fouls on those opportunities changes the dynamic as well. So I think there's stuff the Knicks can do better, of course, but also some really important elements to why they were able to rally to begin with. I also love, and it speaks to that comfort level that you brought up, I love how quickly they will push off makes as these leads start to get bigger and bigger. And you talk about this, they're not that unflappability, making up a word here, that the Celtics will go up by 20 and they're not phased. You can take the temperature of a team rather easily. And especially with the Knicks, no one is like heads down or anything like that, or bad body language. And like I said there, Celtics will go up 20. But if you look at the play-by-play, the next opportunity is probably a New York 3 where they pushed off a make and countered immediately. Pritchard hits a 3 in the fourth quarter. Knicks answer immediately. And then the Celtics don't score until that Tatum dunk with about 18 seconds left. So they go most of the final frame without scoring as the Knicks are just chipping away and playing in transition and creating quality opportunities that now New York is capitalizing on. And I'm going to make a hard pivot here with an ugly segue, but there is a player here who is suited up for both franchises, and it's tough to see. So I'm curious if there's not sympathy in the sense of, oh, well, we wish he was playing better. Of course, no one on the Knicks side wants that. But with Porzingis, what is the general feeling towards him, especially now that he's playing for a geographical rival?
So to be clear, he is on his fourth team removed from the New York Knicks. So while like the way things ended with Porzingis in New York was obviously not, it was ugly. It was not the greatest, like the trade request. And I'm still waiting for the tell-all of, or the sit-down interview of, it would require some truth serum of why things ended the way they did. I think if you, my assessment of it is that the Knicks front office at the time didn't want to commit to him and his injury history. And more specifically, they were on pace to have a very high lottery pick in the Zion Williamson draft. And they knew that Kevin Durant didn't want to be in Golden State anymore. So they figured they'd go all in on cap space and a full rebuild on especially when it was a player that they didn't believe in his health long-term. But like, as far as his impact on the series, and look, the last time the Knicks played the Celtics, the impact was just clearly shown. He hit 8 threes at MSG and just created such an advantage and a mismatch when it came to Cat trying to guard a stretch 5, and like the inverse of what he is. Like, this is a team in the Celtics that actually hunts Porzingis threes and those trailing threes where he steps over half court and he's open, right? And the fact that that's just disappeared, it's less about sympathy or empathy for what's going on with him. It's just an observation that there's really something going on with him. And I think the fact that that card has been played, and I guess, no, we got to go back to chess, that thing has been taken off the board. And you obviously know more than me, like what is actually going on with Porzingis. It seems just like a mystery from everything I read in Boston of what the illness is and what it's doing to him. I mean, it's less so about the shooting at this point. He's been a bit of a liability defensively. Like Josh Hart took him to the rim the other day and in game 1. And
I thought Brunson embarrassed him, frankly, on a first half layup where he attacked him, goes under the basket, and goes back to the other side of the rim.
So that's a skilled MVP candidate in Jalen Brunson doing that, which like he's done that to Wemby at one point. But like you're right, and Brunson did do that to KP. The reason I'm going to Josh Hart, he has one move, left to right. And the fact that he was able to kind of outmaneuver Kristaps when I've seen him at his peak. I've obviously seen in times I've watched the Celtics where he's not really a good defender. He's just tall. And the thing he's good at is protecting the rim. You get him in space, you can actually take advantage of him a little bit. But at the end of the day, you are shooting over somebody that's 7'4", and all of that is just gone. So there's clearly some type of conditioning going on there that he's unable to perform in that sense. And I I mean, from a human standpoint, of course, I feel for the guy not being able to perform at the highest of his abilities. From a Knicks fan standpoint, you're just like thankful that chess piece that you thought was going to be a very important one going into the series in why you would lose it has not been able to be played as often. And look, the Hauser thing is important, I think, as well, because I think he doesn't get as much credit for not being a good defender, but just being an able defender, because he's one of their bigger wings. It's not as someone as small that Jalen Brunson could take advantage of. And now, like, the options are just getting limited for the Celtics. Now, I say all of that knowing, like, not like we said, normalcy is the thing they need to regress back to. Literally, like a decent shooting night, like 30% from three, and they're up 2-0 in the series. But when you're looking at other margins, the Porzingis piece not existing anymore is one that, unfortunately, for Celtics fans, speaks very high advantage for the Knicks.
Yeah, they're just, whether it's Porzingis still playing but being a shell of himself, or Hauser not being able to suit up, and we'll see. We saw him at shoot around before game 2, and he was barely moving. He was just walking around, form shooting, feet aren't leaving the ground. So we'll see if this is enough time for him to suit up for game 3 or not. If he returns this series, who knows? But they're losing bodies, and that's on top of Brown playing with a knee injury and Tatum with the bone bruise in his wrist. And so all of a sudden, this rotation that seemed much deeper going into the season, and you have this Luke Kornet career year, all of a sudden you're talking about, are they 7 deep, and do they get a spurt from someone? And last night that spurt was Porzingis. He played fewer than 6 minutes in his first shift, and I didn't know if he was going to come back out, if we'd see him again in the second half, but he's out there, and he actually had a decent shift there in the third quarter, and I kind of thought cash out now, but they kept him in going into the fourth, and it got worse and worse, and then they had to take him out. So with him, you're right. Defensively, he is bringing nothing to the table right now. He's an easy target for the Knicks, to where Josh Hart, left and right, he's serving them up. And at the other end, he makes Cat so uncomfortable and is such a nightmare. But now he's got Mitchell Robinson for support and doesn't really have to worry about Porzingis, who he started the first round against Orlando 0 for 10 from beyond the arc. And almost all of his points were coming on dunks once they had him roll to the rim more. But as he said yesterday, he had a big crash. And when you have no energy and you can't provide that spark, now we can't even circumnavigate that your shot is, as Porzingis said, janky right now. So you're not shooting, your liability defensively, and you're not really having that energy needed to contribute in any other capacity. But the Celtics are 7 deep without you, unless they want to dust off Torrey Craig or give Baylor Shireman a test drive. So to me, they kind of need Porzingis. Al Horford, I don't know if he actually believes this or not, but today he was talking about the optimism that maybe with 3 days before game 3, Porzingis is in a better place come Saturday afternoon. You can't bank on that, though. And so to me, it's, you've got to have a real short leash with Kristaps. And if that first shift is a downright disaster, maybe you just rely on Kornet and Horford at center if you're the Celtics.
There's no world they start Kornet, is there? Right?
No, there's no world.
Okay. He's been the most impactful center in this series
but he won't be in the first unit.
Okay. He's been the most impactful center from my perspective when he's in the game. Understanding he just like is the opposite of what the Celtics like to do, specifically, you know, with their offense. But I mean, it's why I think the Knicks defense has kind of dictated terms, understanding again what the Celtics are shooting from 3. But if you're going to force a team into isolation as often as you are now, Kornet, I think, is just taking advantage of. I mean, look, the counterpoint to that is that the Knicks could end up putting Kornet, like the Knicks end up with the advantage of if Kornet gets matched up onto Cat in any spot, and then Cat versus a center has just been an advantage for the Knicks all season. So it's weird that Luke Kornet is just an impactful player at all. Former Knick that was like 12th man on a bad
totally
Knicks
different
team.
Version of himself,
like a completely different. Credit to him and what he's turned himself into in his career, and I guess credit to the Celtics as well. But yeah, I've been wondering about how much adjusting, how much desperation there is on the Celtics part, or whether they just kind of run it back and hope for the regression to favor their way. So I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think it's going to resemble game 2 as far as how they manage the center rotation, with the hope and the trust that that was also genuinely surprising to see Al Horford have that bad of a night when it matters most. It's not what we're accustomed to seeing from him. This guy has been a winner his whole career, wins 2 national championships at Florida, and is a huge piece of all that success along the way. So to see him kind of lay an egg was surprising. And I think the Celtics just hope that Al Horford bounces back. And if we manage the center rotation pretty much the same way, Luke will continue to play with that level of physicality at both ends and crash the glass and give us what we need from him, including from an energy standpoint, and that Horford will return to form on Saturday. So we'll have to see if that bet ultimately comes to fruition, but I think it's the direction they go in.
Gotcha.
And then as far as just a series prediction, I know that Knicks fans are going, even if there's some layer of caution that still exists, at this point, it's harder to find a Knicks fan who doesn't think they're ultimately going to win this series. What's your prediction for who ultimately advances to the Eastern Conference Finals here? Do they take care of business?
So I say this with no arrogance. It's very much just playing out the math and the history of what has happened here. I understand that context matters, and like the stat that teams that have dropped the first 2 games at home have only come back to win the series 4 times, like, means nothing in the grand scheme of things, because like, so it could happen a 5th. Like it especially the way that these 2 games have been dropped. I have to think the Knicks can win 2 of the next 5 games. I have to believe that what I've seen from this team through the first 2 games, what I've seen from this team over the course of the playoffs, and more importantly, and this is a bigger picture to what they've built to get to this point. I like Jalen Brunson. I trust him to be to hit the big shots. Like, clutch player of the year winner has just been so, even when like on nights he's not shooting well, I trust him to take and make the biggest shots. Like he missed a big 3 last night when they were up 1. And I was like, it's a shot he normally makes. Like, I'm comfortable with him taking that. And if he hits it, they're up 4 with less than 20 seconds to play. So I have to believe the Knicks win 2 more games, whether that's in 6 or 7. I can't give you that much definitive of a pick. But look, I'll say this. I'm not as confident that like they're going to win the series. I believe they can, and I think they will. It's just not a far-fetched like reality that the Celtics win 4 of the next 5 games, and more specifically win the next 4 games and win it in 6. So look, I picked Celtics in 5 before the series. So obviously I have a respect for the Celtics that they can win 4 out of 5 games against the Knicks. And look, the margin for error has just disappeared for the Celtics, that they can't have not even like a historically bad shooting night. They can't have any type of bad shooting night that results in a losing effort anymore, because like they now have to win like Celtics in 5 over the next 5 games. Otherwise it's curtains on their season. So, we'll see. I think the Knicks do come out of this series, but I'm not at any place to be like, oh, like they've won it already. They have to go and earn it. And I believe enough in the backbone in this team with Brunson, with Hart, with Tibbs, and honestly what we've seen from Mikal, we've seen from OG, and even with Cat, that they can win 2 more games in this series. And I think this team will accept that challenge and rise to that occasion too. So
the second half of what I'm going to say is going to surprise and anger a lot of the Celtics fans on this stream. And curveball there. Like you, I had Celtics in 5 going into this series, but that gap between Tatum and Brown versus Bridges and Anunoby looks a lot different in this series than it did in the regular season. And we talked about the impact you get Mitchell Robinson back and the presence that he has presented. And so what I look at this point is not to gloss over everything else, but to see the success the Celtics are having on the margins and they're still losing, it really becomes hard to shake that only shooting variance can save this team now and turn things around. And could they rattle off 4 straight wins and move on? Sure, it's a team that is talented and capable of accomplishing that. On the other hand, and this is where the shock and outrage might come into play, I really do feel like this is a team, for as much respect as they deserve, as accomplished as they are, 5 Eastern Conference Finals appearances in 7 years with Tatum and Brown together, 2 trips to the finals, 1 title, despite all of their pedigree. I feel like this is a team that is closer to being pushed off the cliff, ready to let go of the rope, however you want to call it, than people might realize. Just taking the temperature, to use that term again, I think they're exhausted. And it's the injuries, it's the mental side of it. They are trying to block out that this might be their last run. And for Tatum and Brown, it's the idea that this might be the best 2-year opportunity they get for years to come, because you're talking about trading off pieces driven by salary dumping motivations here. It's going to take multiple cycles, but get under the second apron. And so this team might be talent-wise at its apex right now and about to go down the other side of the hill. And I just think that they are a team that is absolutely exhausted and trying to white-knuckle their way through this playoff run. To me, it was not just the physicality and the job the Magic did taking away threes, because I think it would have looked better a year ago. But I just think this team is more fried than people realize. We haven't seen someone win a title and get out of the second round since the Kevin Durant Warriors in 2019. And it's not a mileage thing per se, but just this 2-year run and what this season has entailed, where you come off a championship. Drew Holiday told me that it's absolutely exhausting to reach the mountaintop and then have to get back up from base camp once again. And I think this is a team that collectively, it's not going to take that much of a push from the Knicks to get them to let go of the rope. I don't think this is a fighter who's prepared to come out swinging, even if they're getting punched in the face again.
So that was really well said. And I think if I wasn't a Knicks fan and if I wasn't a content creator of Knicks content and too attached to it, I'd probably feel the same way, because there is the thing that I keep keeping in the back of my mind, and it's like a Tom Thibodeau team, right? Like lots made about it, the minutes and the workload that the team is asked to play. The Knicks do not have an injury report. Like nobody is dealing with anything. Like Jalen Brunson went out of a couple games during the Pistons series, came back both times, and then just wasn't on the injury report the next time. They went and got the top-rated athletic person from the Mavericks in the offseason, one of the guys that Luka was apparently attached to. And like OG Anunoby played 70-plus games. And obviously McCall played every game, and Josh Hart missed a game or two. But like this team was generally healthy. I know Jalen Brunson missed a month with a sprained ankle, but that was like a freak. Like he stepped on Austin Reeves. That wasn't a wear and tear overuse injury. And we now get to the playoffs. I'm knocking on every piece of wood that is near me. And the Knicks are the healthy team in this series. And you're telling me about all the, like, what's going on with Porzingis, what's going on with Hauser, what Brown and Tatum are both dealing with. And respect to Al Horford, just like where he is at the point in his career and what he can give you and what is asked of him to give. Like, from an objective standpoint, I hear exactly what you're saying, and it's natural for the team that's more healthy and has already taken a 2-0 lead on the road to be the team you now project to push the Celtics off the mountaintop. I just can't predict it as a Knicks fan, Bobby. I can't comprehend a world where the Knicks get to the conference finals and maybe the finals at the hands of the defending champs that they went 0-4 against and were barely in most of these games. after what, like a James Dolan team, this team that I've decided to dedicate my fandom to is gonna reach the conference finals and potentially the final. Like I can't fathom that world yet. But look, I'm also a Mets fan, and their slogan, "You gotta believe," maybe something that Knicks fans should start adapting as you spoke it into existence. Maybe this is just all the stars aligning for this to be the year. So we'll see how the rest of the series plays out.
Didn't even need new ownership for the Knicks to be able to turn fortunes around.
No, it would have helped if the Knicks got their version of Juan Soto, but I'll take Jalen Brunson instead.
Yeah, the stars seem to be aligning, and the moves for Cad and Brunson or Bridges, excuse me, and Anunoby certainly paying off big time.
Look, you hinted at it, like the Brunson thing turning out the way it did. I don't think they knew they were signing like this, I think they knew they were signing an upgrade over Kemba Walker, right? Like they knew they were getting a good starting
over the corpse
guard.
of Kemba at the time.
Right. Like they knew they were upgrading their point guard. They didn't know they were getting the most important player the franchise has had since Patrick Ewing, right? And that working out to your favor. He was on a bargain contract for 2.5, 3 years. And then signed another bargain contract that now gives you flexibility in this world of first and second aprons. It's why them being rewarded right now is actually pretty cool. Now job not finished, and that's why Brunson being the spearhead of that would give me confidence. But yeah, it's an interesting world the Knicks now find themselves in. Let's see if they can finish the job.
Yeah, and I'll make this last point and then give you the floor to plug and promote social media handles and any work you want to put out there, because you do an exceptional job. With Jalen Brunson, for so long we heard, even from players, no one wants to go to the Knicks. And it just felt like James Dolan was this boogeyman lurking over his own franchise. Jalen Brunson, in an odd way to frame it, kind of defeated his boss in James Dolan. He is he's not alone, but he is at the heart of changing the culture there and making it to where now you get to see Madison Square Garden in a playoff setting and what it's like to play in New York with this fan base that is dancing in the streets and all of that. And it becomes, why would I want to go there? Flips into, why wouldn't I want to play for that city and that franchise? And so for all the blemishes and for as good a job as James Dolan did of keeping players away and making that a destination you'd rather not go to, Jalen Brunson has completely transformed the look, the vibe, the feel, and the culture of the Knicks.
And it's changed a lot of us in the fan base to suddenly think good things can happen to you too, which is why we're all pinching ourselves at what the last 48 to 72 hours have been. And again, I'm trying to enjoy the moment. That was one of the missives that we sent out to Knicks fans last night. Like, hey, they're going to be up 2-0. They won't play again until Saturday at 3:30. Enjoy this opportunity, like the being up 2-0. They are in a great spot. Don't worry so much about the Celtics potentially coming back. Try to enjoy the fact that your team built a 2-0 lead, and then welcome the challenge that we're not going to play, right? So as fans, enjoy the next 2-3 days, and then we'll hopefully enjoy what they do the rest of the series as well.
Relish it, Knicks fans, Celtics fans. You better hope that shooting variance swings back in your favor. He is Andrew Claudio from Knicks Film School. And Andrew, I'm going to give you the floor right now. The stage is yours. Promote everything you want.
So me personally, Andrew J. Claudio _ on all socials. You can also check out Knicks Film School on all socials. Just search for us. We have a YouTube channel, ever-growing YouTube channel, and a wonderful podcast feed where we post daily, sometimes multiple times a day. We have a newsletter, a Substack that we post, again, daily, sometimes multiple times a day. Wall-to-wall coverage of the Knicks from an X's and O's standpoint, from a fan standpoint, and from the best analysis that you'll find in this space. So, Bobby, it was great to see you. Thank you for having me. And if we do run into each other again this summer, I do hope that it's not after any tensions flared up. I got a text from Jack last night that I'm happy for no Knicks fans. I am happy for one. and that's you. And so I appreciate the people I've found on the other side of the enemy lines in Celtics world.
Yeah, if there's anyone I could be supportive of in getting to enjoy this moment, it's you, Andrew. I do hope that we get to watch Tyler Kolek light it up at Summer League once again. And yeah, I mean, for Celtics fans as well, I would implore you to go and not just support, but for your own benefit, check out Andrew's work and what they have going on at Knicks Film School, because it's a great way to really learn about the series from the other side. And it's a deeper dive. So you learn about it from an analytical standpoint and what you might be missing if you have tunnel vision, so to speak, looking at it from what's going on with the Celtics. So I would say check it out, support and enjoy Andrew's work because it is exceptional. Celtics Rundown live stream. The plan is to return on Sunday at noon. Of course, there's a chance that there is a late scheduled media availability. Pull you back behind the curtain here. This was going to be at noon, but Celtics late call on a media availability pushed us to 5. And so I will keep you posted on the time, but the initial plan is Sunday at noon, where for Celtics' sake, hopefully we're talking about 2-1, because if it's 3-0, I'm calling it. I'm saying it's Jover. He is Andrew Claudio. I am Bobby Krivitsky. Thank you once again, and we'll see you for Game 3.